Hello and welcome. My name is Biljana. It is Friday again, and we're together with the Legacy Changemaker broadcast. At the Legacy Changemaker broadcast, we connect, celebrate, and further inspire changemakers from all over the world to work towards a more peaceful, prosperous, hopeful, and people and planet-centered world. So, in the next 30 minutes, we'll be together. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to put them in the chat, and we are going to answer them no matter if you are watching us on YouTube or on LinkedIn. Your questions will be answered, and your comments will be noticed. So, without me talking anymore, let me tell you a little bit about our guest today. So, her name is Nikia Brown, and Nikia Brown is a Philadelphia born, but she grew up in a Caribbean household, and she really loves people and places. She loves bridging the diversity between people, and she loves bringing them together. I met Nikia some 3 years ago when she was part of a team from the Graduate Institute in Geneva working on a challenge. And the challenge was how to inspire positive masculinity images and positive femininity images in order to reduce extreme violence in Bangladesh. And this is when Nikia and all her team members inspired me. So I thought I will offer you Nikia today. So Nikia, are you with us?
Yes, I am. I am right here, and I am so happy to be here. Thank you so much, Biliana, for the invitation. It's great to connect with you again in this new way.
Yes. So can you tell us a little bit what has happened in those 3 years? Of course, I forgot to mention that actually before I met you here in Geneva, you were in South Korea. You were doing a graduate program in sociology and you had a master's, which you did in Korean.
Yes.
And then, of course, you were in Geneva, and then you were at the American University in
Yes.
Washington, and now you're at the University of Illinois Urbana. So what are you doing there?
So right now, you're right. I've done a lot in the space between that time of us first meeting till now, and even before then. You mentioned Korea. Korea is my very heartbeat. I went there for the first time in 2007 when I was fresh out of undergraduate school, looking for something new, and just ready to experience a different part of the world. So I went there, taught English for a couple of years, and I thought it was going to be 1 year, but life is unpredictable and has a great sense of humor. So I ended up being there for 2 years, came back, and I was like, wait, I think there's more for me in Korea, and I don't necessarily want to spend that time teaching, but I think there's something that I can do. And so I applied for a Korean government scholarship program for international students who were interested in pursuing a graduate program, whether it be a master's or a PhD at a Korean higher education institution. I applied, and only it had a quota for each country that it was partnered with, and the quota for the United States was 5 people. Well, it was 5 people, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, am I going to be one of the five? Am I going to be one of the five?" And I prayed and I prayed and I hoped, and I got the scholarship. So that landed me back in Korea in 2010, and I completed a language program for about a year and a half, and then completed my master's degree in sociology from Sungkyunkwan University in Korean. It was a very challenging experience, but one of the most rewarding experiences of my entire life. But I remember that transition from language school to graduate school. And days before the first semester, I would wake up in these night sweats, like having panic attacks. Like, am I capable? Can I really do this? Like, I've only been studying the language for a year and a half. Am I equipped? And I was like, I cannot keep waking up in these night sweats. I can't keep allowing fear to take so much power and so much space in my life. That's not healthy. So I decided to do something about the emotions that I was feeling. So I went to the university and I met with the office manager and I met with a couple of students who were currently in the program, and they reassured me, they welcomed me. And after that meeting, I didn't have any more night sweats. I felt at peace. I was a little nervous still, but I knew that I would have a community and I would have the support that I would need to do well in that program. So that's how I ended up getting my master's in South Korea. And I call my relationship with Korea a lifetime love affair, because I keep going back. It keeps pulling me back, and I keep going back in different capacities. So very excited to talk to you about how that experience has led to some of the work that I'm doing now, because it is a
Yes,
dominant.
yes. And I just want to remind everybody who is watching us that today our chat is going to circle around the topic of tools for thriving, right?
Yes, yes.
So, and I guess this experience has something to do with tools for thriving,
Yes.
right?
Yes, I would say that experience in Korea is one of the tools. Well, actually, while I was there, I was able to pick up a number of tools to place in my tool belt and be able to access that now as I work with international students who are studying here in the States and probably have some of the same fears that I experience, and also want to make an impact here while they're here in the States. So I'm able to take the lessons that I've learned there, the ways that I've grown there, and share that with them so that they feel encouraged, they feel confident about how they're going to do life in America, how they're going to really maximize their time in their college during their college tenure.
Yes, and for those of you who don't know, Nikia is the Associate Director of the Program for Intercultural and Global Learning International Student Experience. So
Yes,
more or less, you take care of their experience, right?
exactly. Yes, yes. We want to make sure that they're having a full experience while they're here.
Beautiful, beautiful. So what is the change that you are bringing about?
Great question. In my role, I wear a number of hats. One of those hats are making sure that international students feel welcome, feel a sense of belonging, and are engaged in different programs and activities so that they're making the most of their college experience at the University of Illinois Urbana Champaign. Another program that I am responsible for is the LAS Global Leaders Program. And that program is a 4-year program. It's cohort based, and it brings together domestic and international students around different global and local challenges. And they work with a mentor. Biliana was a mentor to one of the groups that were involved in this program. And they work with a mentor who's a practitioner in the field. And they are also partnered with a community organization to develop a social intervention to resolve whatever challenge that community organization poses to them. And then at the end of the semester, they present their ideas before the community organizations and before a panel of experts where they receive feedback and are able to submit their final deliverables to the organization. So from the first year in college, they're connected with people from different cultural and socioeconomic backgrounds, and they are placed in teams. And so they're working together. They're learning about problem solving, intercultural communication skills. They're learning about human-centered design, how to start with empathy before you do anything else, and how to take steps backwards if you need to. And so they're learning all of this as a student who just graduated from high school months ago. So they grow really fast, and they're able to immerse themselves in learning that is different from what they were used to in high school. So that's what the first year looked like. But the second and third and fourth year, very different phases. Second year, they become leaders in the program who mentor the incoming cohort. By the third year, they're creating their own human-centered design workshops and delivering it to local and global community organizations. And by the fourth year, they're reflecting on their experience, everything that they've learned, and developing some kind of capstone project that reflects that to the general public. So we launched our pilot year, and we're going into our second year, and it's exciting to build a plane while flying it. It's nerve-wracking, but it's super exciting. It's an adrenaline rush to really be working on something as it is evolving right before your eyes.
Yes, the Global Leaders Program at the University of Illinois Urbana.
Yes.
And you take care of them for 4 years. This is really amazing.
4 years,
It is
yes.
a long-term program. So what
Yes.
have been the biggest challenges, Nikia?
Well, I was hired, we didn't mention this, but this is an interesting fact. I was hired a year ago in March, and I arrived in Illinois 2 days before the shelter in place mandate. As a result of the pandemic, I wasn't able to be onboarded inside the university. I was onboarded completely remotely. So I remember arriving with my suitcases and then my supervisor showing up at my apartment, handing me my laptop and saying, "We'll see you on Zoom." Okay, yes, I will see you on Zoom. So I mean, everyone did everything they could to try to make me feel as welcome, as a part of the team as possible, given the circumstances. So I think that was a little bit challenging. Of just pretty much being onboarded remotely and then developing this program and other ideas for the courses that I teach, pretty much in isolation. Right, but I would say that there are some advantages to that and some disadvantages, right? So sometimes you love being in an office, so people can be your soundboard. You can bounce ideas off of them. I'm an extrovert, so I gain a lot of creativity and inspiration from being around people. So I miss that element, but the advantage was it allowed me to sit in silence and think about create a vision. What do I want this program to be? What is the impact? What's the buy-in for students? What are some of the challenges I'm going to encounter? Like I got the chance to think through all of that and develop a plan. And then initially the plan was for students to travel and do research abroad and for the classes to be in person, but COVID didn't allow that to happen. So I had to be flexible. I had to adapt and also model for the students how they're going to have to be flexible and how they're going to have to adapt when they don't see their social interventions, their projects developing in the way that they had anticipated. So I would say that was a challenge, but also a blessing, as you know, because life is constantly teaching you that you have to be nimble because you don't know what's next.
Yes, that has been a big lesson with the COVID pandemic that all of us have had to learn.
Yes.
And I guess, have you felt changed inside of you thanks to this lesson?
Yes. I would say yes, but I feel like it's a change that I'm constantly being immersed in or constantly being reminded as you can do this, right? When you look at a job description and the list of responsibilities that your employer is asking of you, like, wow, can I really do this? Like, do I have what it takes? And this past year has shown me that, oh wow, like everything that I've learned, all the tools that I've gained through my graduate program in Korea, through my graduate program at the American University School of International Service, through connecting with people from different parts of the world and hearing their stories, all of those tools have equipped me to really affect positive change and that I'm capable and competent of doing that. So I would say that I've gained in confidence and I've also learned how to be flexible and to work with a really diverse team. Like right now, for the LAS 100 course that I direct and for the Global Leaders Program, I have about 5 TAs that are teaching assistants that I work with, and they are from all around the world: Colombia, Korea, India, Puerto Rico, Philadelphia, and China. And I'm learning how to lead a diverse team and to really create space to invite those different worldviews and those different perspectives in as we are building these programs and these courses together. So collaboration has been a huge part of my work.
Yeah, it's interesting how sometimes we take for granted the very effective tools that life teaches us.
Yes.
And we don't really take the opportunity to elaborate them, to name them, and
Yes.
to really acknowledge that those are tools that help us.
Definitely. I would agree with that 100%. It's almost like we need to pause as we go throughout life, and literally, like as I described, the tool belt that we're wearing, and just like different and planning different tools in them as we go along. We need to pause and just take stock of what we have of our collection, because if we don't, we forget. We forget. or we doubt ourselves and like, oh, I don't need to doubt myself. I actually did that and it was successful. So I can do it again. And I can actually pass these tools on to other people.
Yes, really amazing. So tell us a little bit about the achievements you've had so far.
Well, Liliana, as you have experienced, our first year in the Global Leaders Program has been very successful. The students worked with local and global organizations last spring. To name a few, the Immigrant Services of Champaign, Urbana, Champaign, Urbana Public Health District, Refugee, which is based in Kenya, and Brazil and Saji in Brazil. So students got the opportunity to work with other change agents in different parts of the world and really apply themselves. And they faced challenges, but I was so inspired and so impressed with how they leaned into the discomfort that they faced as they had conflict, which is natural, right? As they had some disagreements, they leaned into it. They didn't run away from it and say, okay, we are having these disagreements, but how can we work through them? And then also putting their ideas forward, being brave enough to say, okay, I have these ideas, not sure how it's going to work, but I'm going to put it forward and let's see what really sticks. And their commitment and dedication to that. And then not only that, but taking all of their learning and synthesizing that in a way that is accessible to a broad audience. I mean, I'm just in awe of how much they've grown and learned and how professional they handled the entire project. So I would call that a success, their growth and their process and their delivery.
Yes. And here I want to bring you back to something that you just said. You mentioned the word conflict, and you mentioned that in this diverse environment, it was inevitable not to have conflict. Can you please talk us through a little bit? How did you and how did your students manage this conflict?
Communication is everything. Right?
Okay.
It's a word that we hear dropped a lot. You must communicate, you must communicate, you must communicate. But it's sometimes very challenging to communicate when you're communicating with people who might have different communication styles than you do, who might have a language barrier, right? Who might not understand where you're coming from. Right. So, but not allowing that to dissuade you from having the conversation is very important. Priya Parker has this quote, and and it stuck with me for a very long time. She says that unhealthy peace can be just as threatening to human connection as unhealthy conflict. And people might ask, well, what is unhealthy peace? Unhealthy peace is what I just described. It's like you know that there is an issue, but you pretend as if it doesn't exist. All is well. It's okay. Just forget about it. But inside, it's really bothering you. And so it's so important to name it, to bring it into the conversation respectfully and allow room for different perspectives to be heard, and just active listening. What does that really look like? And then being able to compromise, right? Even if you're not getting your way, how can we go from our different opinions, our different interests to our common needs and our common goals? And I've seen the students walk through that process, and it's difficult, but it's a beautiful process. And I've also walked through that a couple of times myself.
Yes, me too. And the most difficult part for me was to handle my own emotions.
Yes, yes. Right. And they're valid. No one's saying that you're wrong for feeling anger or frustration. There's nothing wrong with the emotions that you are feeling. They're very valid, but we do have a responsibility in how we respond. Right? We don't have to respond in anger. We don't have to respond in frustration. If you need to take a day, if you need to take a week before you can have that conversation in a way that's effective and productive, take that day, take that week, honor those emotions. But if you start the conversation with those emotions, sometimes, I would say oftentimes, they're a barrier and they won't allow you to get very far in the conversation or to any positive resolve.
Yes, and we do need to build bridges among each other, right?
Yes.
Instead of pulling
barriers.
Yes, putting barriers.
Yes.
That's right. So I remember when we had a chat a couple of days ago, and you mentioned that we need to see conflict as a possibility to create stronger connections between diverse people.
Yes.
And I love this. So I want to bring this up so that we can kind of marvel it a little bit.
Yeah, like I said, I love people. I love harmony, bringing people together. And I didn't realize this, but I'm learning this. Sometimes you need to go through conflict to get to that harmony. And if you go around it, you'll never be able to get to a space where everyone feels comfortable and being themselves and sharing their ideas and being authentic. Right. So we have to go through conflict to get to that place of harmony, to get to that place where people can work together effectively.
Yes, thank you so much for mentioning it. This is priceless. You are building a platform. The Global Leaders Program is a platform. And I love when you mentioned that this is a platform that makes students change agents of their own change, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
That's actually one of the last lines in my bio. And I think it came to me when I was applying to grad school the second time, when they were asking me to write my statement of purpose. And I was like, oh, well, I kind of know it, but I'm going to grad school to figure that out. And you're asking me this question right now. But as I was thinking about what is it that you want to do? Like, how do you want to show up in the world, Nikia? That phrase just came to me. I want to be someone that create platforms that allows them to be agents of their own change, meaning that we're talking about tools to thrive, right? Yes, I can create the platform and I can equip you with the tools, but what are you going to do with those tools, right? Kind of just giving them agency. You have the tools now. What's your mission, right? What are your goals in your life? Who are the people you feel called to work with? Okay, you have the tools, right? And helping them identify that. Knowing that it was hard for me to identify my own strengths and even like my vision and mission for my life, how do I have a conversation with students around those topics so that they can come into that realization for themselves? And then I can point to them to the right resources and the right tools to help them live that out. But they're going to be the protagonists in their own stories.
Yes, that's right. And I love how you took responsibility for your own growth and for figuring it out.
Yes.
And I love how by taking responsibility for yourself, you are trying to teach others and to inspire others to take responsibilities for themselves. So we have some 7 minutes left until the end of this chat. Can you summarize for our listeners? Wait a second. I just saw a comment. We have Noor from Mien. Is hi, and she's there. She is. She's watching us on LinkedIn. So hello, thank you for being here with us.
Yes.
Let me go back to my question. So the question is, can we summarize for those out there, what are the tools for thriving? And if they want to kind of use them, where do they start?
Yes. I think that's a great way to round out our conversation. I think it's important to have a vision and to write it down, and to, if you need to take the time to figure out what are the resources that I'm going to need to realize this vision, take the time to do that, but write the vision and then figure out the people that you want to connect with who will help you make the vision a reality. And don't just stop with the vision, bring it to life. Right? There's so many distractions that can happen, and sometimes our self-doubt, our very own self-doubt, can be the biggest distraction to realizing the visions that we have and the goals that we have for our lives. Don't allow it to distract you. Move forward, right? And don't aim for perfection. Aim for progress. My friend likes to tell me, because sometimes I struggle with perfectionism. She's like, perfection is a fallacy. It does not exist, but you know what's possible? Progress is possible. You can continue to develop and continue to grow always, right? We can be lifelong learners and continue to learn from the mistakes that we make, even if you want to dare to call it a mistake, because it teaches us something, yeah? And then to be open to evolving, be open to that vision changing. I remember I struggled after university because I had a vision to be a lawyer. And when I graduated and that was no longer a desire for me, I really felt lost. I felt disillusioned. I felt like life had betrayed me. Like, what am I going to do? This lifelong dream I've had is not happening anymore. But I had to learn that, wow, um, sometimes life takes you in a different direction, and that is okay. So be open to your dreams, your visions evolving depending on what you learn and where you go. Embrace conflict as an opportunity, as I shared before, and be an active listener, especially if you're working with people from different backgrounds and you're a leader of people from different backgrounds. Be okay with being silent and allowing different people onto that stage and creating space for them to be recognized and for them to contribute because their opinions matter, right? They are there, they're working with you, and titles are irrelevant if they are there and they have something to share, and it is a value and that is welcomed. So I would say I would leave you with those few tools that they have helped me. And I'm continuing to learn and to grow and develop in my own leadership, inclusive leadership, I would say. So it's a lifelong process, as we've indicated.
Great. So a question on fear.
Yes.
What should we think and do with fear?
Oh, we should not allow fear to take ownership of our lives. So like I was saying before about emotions, like fear is natural. Like if you are going to be engaging something that is scary, that is daunting, you've never done it before, okay? It's natural to be fearful. But at the same time, you get to decide how much space, how much room, how much power fear is going to have over your life. And a little bit of fear is fine because it gives you that adrenaline, right? That adrenaline rush. But if it's too much, it could hinder you. It's say, oh no, this is too much, this is too scary. I don't like the way this is feeling. I'm not even going to move forward. So if we allow fear too much room in our life, it can hinder our progress, it can hinder our development, and we can miss out on some incredible life opportunities as a result of that.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So that has been a really inspiring conversation. One last call to action. What would you like to invite our audience to do?
Well, I have really enjoyed working with the global leaders, our first year students who are now going into their second year. And so if you have the opportunity to mentor young people, I say go for it. Look for the young people who are in your circle and who might need some guidance, might need some direction, and step up and be a mentor to them. Even if it's just offering some life advice. I know sometimes we think, well, I'm not a big name, I'm not a politician, I'm not a university professor. You don't have to be any of those things. Life teaches us unique lessons, and those unique lessons can be very valuable to young people who are growing up and just trying to figure out what they want to do and who they want to be and their role in this global economy. So I would say be a mentor, see who's out there, see who might need to learn from the lessons that you have gained, and be willing to share them.
Thank you. This has been a really inspiring conversation. Thank you so much, Nikia. I want to wish you a lot of courage, and I want to wish you a lot of action. And then, of course, all the students you're working with, and of course, all the change makers who are listening to us, do apply some of those tools. And if you want to have further answers, do not hesitate to reach out to Nikia or to me, right?
Yeah.
So once again, it has been a real pleasure. Have a lovely day. And thank you, Nikia.
Thank you, Liliana, for the invitation. It's been a joy having this conversation with you.
Yes, same here. So, dear audience, thank you for being with us. We will see you next Friday. Have a lovely weekend and goodbye.